Okay, so waiting for. Hello?
Hello.
Yeah. This is a good. Nice day.
Just trying to get a picture here.
Okay. Oh yeah, I'm also trying mine connecting. So without wasting most of your time, today's topic is how can we filmmakers, like African filmmakers, make the best of our stories. You know, we have a lot of stories, but then we seem to Hollywoodize our films. You know that. So that at the end of the day, when our audience will receive our stories, they will not receive us as Africans. They'll just receive it maybe in an American way. And besides that, we have a lot of good stories that we can tell than the bad stories. So this is your flow now. I'm giving you time. This is your time. Then you can greet our audience that we have at this moment.
Maybe firstly we need to have a conversation around literature and writing skills. So it goes again to say it's not just about writing, but what narratives are we writing? What is our educational background? What kind of storyline are we promoting? It's one thing trying to write movies, and you write movies which have black people, but the storyline is a white storyline, or it is a Chinese storyline. Then you will find yourself trapped again in the midst of guns and cars and the whole Hollywood sort of thing. If you might move into the Indian space, then it is more authentic slightly because it celebrates their dance, their musicals, and etc. The Nigerian could have been coming up with an idea, but again trying to put a cinema to witchcraft and the high life of Nigeria. I still have a lot of reservation in terms of their storyline. That is it an honest demonstration and an honest manifestation of the culture of the people, or it is only that when we talk about witchcraft is how evil it is? Have we seen that African ancient knowledge system being used for good? So for African leaders, I think for a start, you can't go to school and study William Shakespeare, Charles Dickens, and etc. And by the time you want to write a movie, you think that you can write an African movie. You will be trying to put a wig on the head of Mbuyane Handa, and it won't fly.
Yeah, I understand. So basically like if you had write about if you had write a movie now, right? Which subject would you say is the best to tell our story?
For me, what would be passionate for me is a storyline that celebrates our history and intelligent enough to be able to harvest our fashion, our political struggle, our economic struggle, but something that must be able to show the African child the bigger world view of what is the international world, the economic world and political world. What is their agenda towards the African children? Do you have someone who can sit down nicely and do a projection to say, at the rate at which we are going right now, what kind of Africa are we going to be having another 30, 40, 50 years from now? Even I'd want to see a movie entitled 400 Years Later, which we'll talk right now. If colonialism took 400 years to bring us here, and we must take 400 years to undo what colonialism did, what kind of Africa will we have in the future? That kind of a storytelling for me becomes more projective towards the future, but it is also honest to the history and the historicity from where we are coming from.
Yeah. As for me, I would think of of an idea whereby it's high time we show how rich Africa is versus how poor Africa is. You know, when someone is about to, if anyone is about to tell a story in South Africa, they'll look to go and tell a story in Soweto. You see, but then there's Centon, there's Kimberley, where there are a lot of minerals. You get it? So that idea that you are here implanting in children, in the generation that to come, it will show. It's there to show them that there's nothing here for you in Africa. There's no money. There's nothing here. But then when they look at our Hollywood films, and they see Beverly Hills and all those things, the only idea that they will have is as soon as I finish school, I'm going to Beverly Hills. But then, forsaking all the good things that are in Africa, the minerals, the land, there's more land in Africa than any place in the world to talk about. So it's also something that the agenda setting that we are putting in the movies, in the TV shows. You know, when it comes to TV shows, like in America, I've seen this guy who was George Lucas. George Lucas was saying, I'll never shoot a movie in the ghetto. Why? Because America, if I shoot a movie in the ghetto, I'm trying to say to portray the whole of American idea, American dream to be a ghetto. So for us now, filmmakers in Africa, I think it's high time we shoot nice movies that uplifts Africa than the one that is always saying Africa people are poor, people are dying of HIV, there's Ebola, there's that kind of thing. They are rebels and everything, and all those things. I think they are worldwide.
The history we are reading will always have the complexion of the author. So hence I started off by saying, can we talk to the quality of the writers of these stories? Because depending on their biases and their knowledge system, it will manifest itself in the quality of their writing. So without even beating about the bush, there is no way you can have a colonial mind trying to tell an African authentic indigenous storyline. It is bound to be mixed up in the midst of their bias.
So the other thing as well, let me just put down. So it also comes to support. The support system here in Africa, I think we are lacking on that as well, on support system. Like, I can make a nice movie today, but then the support system around us, no one, like Africans, if I put it down there are few people who want to watch it. But then if something just comes from the West, everyone flock to it.
Yeah, the brainwashing is strong. And those who have money, someone once said, those who have money have no brains, and those with brains don't have money. Because at the end of the day, is it possible that the African billionaires and millionaires have not yet understood the power of media and the power of investing their money into movies? I mean, we have Hollywood, we have Bollywood, we have Nollywood. Why can't we have Jollywood, which is Johannesburg, which will create its own market base, which is big enough for its own market with its own storylines? But all those people who are calling themselves millionaires and billionaires, they're still watching movies. And the question is, what kind of movies are they watching? What kind of storyline are they watching? So it has to do with, again, activating the young people to change their... And by the way, while we are saying that, we need to understand the power and impact of the media and movie industry in terms of shaping the minds of the young people, so that you begin to create a youth that is already fantasizing about Hollywood, fantasizing about Los Angeles, fantasize about London, because they've seen it on the movie. As you rightfully said at the beginning, unless we begin to sell and show our own stories, show our own environment, and speak well about our own resources, our children will grow up in our houses, but their minds are already in the movie world. which has already been built into their psyche and their subconscious. So through entertainment, other countries have been able to sell their dreams. The American dream, for example. America has ended up as a destination of the educated because it has been packaged, put in the movies, and everyone wants to become part of the movie. That's why we drive, that's why we fly, that's why we go there. So ultimately, I think that our education department, our social department, our political department, our military department, our intelligence in terms of social re-engineering can never undermine the power of the entertainment industry in terms of it being a key driver psychologically to the quality of the young people that we are breeding in our schools and in our universities.
Okay. And also, the other idea is on culture and dressing. Again, the other idea on culture and dressing as well, I think it's one of the things that is one of the idea that we should put in our movies as well. How do you see that, like using our own culture in the dressing, culture and dressing?
Again, when you ask a question like that, it must not just be culture and dressing, but the entire value chain of culture and dressing. Who is making the dresses? Who is making selling the cloth? Who is planting the cotton, and who is harvesting that cotton? So that you begin to speak to the whole value chain. It's one thing to talk about African dressing, and it's just how to put a cloth together. But the question is, what is the value chain of a dress? Is it owned by Africans, or it is Chinese material that is an African design? If you understand what I'm saying. But in terms of that, again, the African must be given an opportunity to develop his own dressing and advance and adapt it to the modern generation. And some people misquoted me when I said we must go back to the roots, and they thought I said we must put on skins and we must put on what? If you have the skins, you can put them on. But what's wrong with us taking those same designs and adapting them to the modern generation? Because culture is dynamic, and in essence, it must become relevant constantly as we are moving towards the future without losing the essence of the past.
Oh yeah. And also, sorry. Okay, I'm also taking notes, so you see me when I look down. I'm actually writing down.
Okay.
So also the other idea is how can one also be a, let's say, let me put it this way, how can one be a Christian and a filmmaker at the same time? Because from in the meantime, like the international arena, they, especially now, they are pushing nudity in movies. They are pushing the other what you call the same-sex marriages and all those. How can how can a filmmaker, an African filmmaker, adapt and conquer in such an environment where there are agendas like that?
The colonial system says you can only be this or that. But the correct thinking must say you can be this and that. In that case, then there's no limit to what you can become. If this is your passion, find your niche and do that without following the gravy train of what they are doing. Hence, I'm saying if the storyline that we are now promoting, and the storyline is Western, and the storyline is colonial, the storyline will have the moral and ethical backbone of the one who is writing the story. So the one who likes nudity will put nudity. The one who likes guns will put guns. Queen Tarantino, who likes spilling blood, will be chopping people's heads throughout the whole movie. So you as a film director, the question is, what storyline do you want to portray? And that gap is always there because every person is a fingerprint, and you can have your own impact on the storyline to drive. It's one thing to become commercial without conscience. It's another thing to become honest with conscience and be able to drive. But I believe that Christianity, in its own space, has not been faithful to her own calling in terms of upholding the very principles that you are talking about. Because if you begin to talk about same-sex marriage, Christianity promotes that. So what's your problem? That's what they want to see. That's what they believe in. So until again you begin to find the essence of what people believe, and are they honestly doing that? You as a person, it's your personal impetus, and find your own locus of control to see how best you can drive an agenda using film and industry as an extension of your voice to portray those stories. I thank you.
Okay, that's nice. So at this moment, I think we can welcome maybe 2 or 3 people to just ask a few questions online. If they can join us, then they ask us a few questions. Then from then, yeah, I know I know you are very busy now. So after that, we can close down. And also yeah, so people want to join in and ask Mr. Maponga just a few questions concerning this subject that we are talking about, the film and agenda settings. Like how can we set our agendas, like our films to blend, our films to be African. When an African movie, when someone writes his movie, it also should show his own culture, like what you said, like Quentin Tarantino and Rodriguez. Most of their movies, they are Mexican. Their food, they show Mexican food. The dressing is Mexican. The music there is Mexican. Everything there is Mexican. But so as Africans as well, we should also try to make our own movies, like from dressing to set designs to our homes and everything, and even the culture, the respect that that we give people, our elders in the movies. They should also show, because our kids will always take that as they'll think that's a good thing, because movies is that bullet, what the magic bullet theory, that one, that if someone just sees it in the movies, they say, I think that's the truth, that's the way you're supposed to live. So it's something that us as filmmakers should do, should also work on upholding our own from culture to our way of life in fashion as well. So yeah, so I'm still waiting to see if someone can. Okay, there's someone who said the American can also, they can shoot their movies in SA. I don't know if it was a question or okay, let's see the other questions. So okay, so okay, so this guy is asking you, he's saying does it have business sense to talk more of Africa in writing?
Yeah, you need to learn and understand that writing and creative writing is the source from where all storylines are coming from. You cannot just take cameras right now and go and stand on the road and say you are shooting a movie. The question is, what are you shooting? What is the story? So if you don't know that marketing, movies, news, magazines, newspapers are all sources of information, which is then gathered, and from that gathering of information, you can end up actually with a movie. So writing is the basis. The storyline is the basis of the movie industry. I thank you. If I had the question correctly.
Oh yeah, I think that, because someone was saying this lecturer of mine once said you can never make a good story out of a bad sorry, you can never make a good movie out of a bad story. And you can always make a good movie out of a good story. So no matter the shots, even the shots are bad, as long as the story is good, the people can follow the story and enjoy it. You remember the ones that we were watching a long time ago, those Nigerian ones. There were no shots or there were no stylish shots, but people still remember those movies. Why? Because of the storyline that is in there. So there is a fashion Sangoma is saying, the sooner we embrace ourselves, the better, as we will tell our stories with ease. Being ourselves up, I don't know, our resilience, our power together, we will live in the richest continent in the world. Let's explore. Let's explore us. That's the fashion sangoma. This one is saying, besides protecting our heritage and praising our culture, does it have business sense to talk more of Africa enlighten us, Mr. Maponga?
Yeah.
That's the other one.
And the movie industry must be able to open up the eyes of the African to the business opportunities that are on the African continent. And it's not only that Africa is about culture. Culture is about mining. For example, if we can right now go back and write a movie on the King Solomon's mines that are found in Queen Sheba Mountains in Mpumalanga, and rewrite a story of what and how those mines were running in those days, are you not educating the youth as to the mining opportunities in that region? If we can go to the Clock of Mankind, that is also in Mpumalanga, and design a sci-fi movie of how the old people used to write and determine time and putting stones, the whole interaction with that, is that not historical? If you can go back to the cradle of humankind in Mahalisbek and look at those caves and the lives and the skeletons that are there, and you can write a story about that. If you can go to the Kimberley mines, for example, and write stories about that. So it's not only about when Van Riebeck came here, which becomes a historical story, but look at what the movie such as King Shaka, which was done. The critiques were very high, but I'm saying it was just one narrative. How many movies have they done on the King of Egypt, for example? 10, 15, 20 movies, all of them trying to relate the same story. Now the Africans, one movie is done of King Shaka, and then we stop and start criticizing that movie instead of creating and rewriting other narratives. We have food in Africa. You can write stories about foods. We have trees in Africa. We have indigenous medicines. We have our political struggle, childbirth technologies. We have how to yoke our oxen, how to plant our field, witchcraft stories. You know, the storylines are endless. And inside those storylines is education. That is not only educative, but it is also commercial education. Because by activating the mind of the community, you are able to start creating new businesses.
Sure. Then, thank you. Then there's this one who is asking, do you think our media is in a gap of financial intelligence more than cultural contentism?
If you can, once you begin to talk about media and you talk about finance, you are talking about the same person. Because right now the media and the finances are in the hands of the colonizers. So does it make business sense to the African? The answer is a big fat no. Because the one who has got the money will sponsor the movie that he wants you to see, will sponsor the program that they want you to see. So don't complain that our media house right now, including magazine programs, are all infested with one narrative of same-sex marriages, witchcraft, and crime. When an African appears on a movie, he must appear as a criminal, he must appear as a witch doctor, and someone who is doing shenanigans stuff, doing crime, or he must appear as a homosexual. Are we saying that Africans, this is what summarizes what we are? Even TV presenters right now, the question is, who is employing all of them? Are you telling me that this is the true representation of the Africans, that it will have and bisexual and homosexual and lesbian? Them. Second question, what interest does he have in the program and who is funding the program? Then the whole picture becomes much more clearer. Hence I'm saying the money and the manager of the station are one and the same thing.
Yeah. So I think they can hear this one. Let me run again to this one, this question. How do we glorify African heroes without Western influence, e.g. Mugabe, Gaddafi, and Magufuli?
You look at the movies that were done around around Mahatma Gandhi, the movies that were done around other international, King Leopold, for example, the movies that were done such as King George, many other movies. History is beautiful. You can still tell a story, the good things that someone did and the bad things that someone did. Depending on you as a storyteller, you can always decide which one do you want to magnify over the other. So that power is the power of the movie. You will decide. If you want to write Mugabe purely as a saint, you can do that. If you want to write a movie to show that Mugabe was a tyrant, you can do that. But if you want to represent a correct picture of both the good and the bad to create a balanced story, you can also do that. And that takes the genius of the director and the producer of a movie to know exactly how much of each you can put. Even in soup, if you put too much curry and you put too much pepper, no one can eat it. And if you put too much salt, no one can eat it. And if you don't put the salt at all, no one can eat it. But you need to find out how much of each do you put so that you create a good soup in which people can eat. And that, for me, it is the soup for the eyes. How do you create a balanced content so that those that are watching the movie can actually have a true representation of the storyline itself?
Yeah. So the next question is as you all know that movies and pictures are powerful, is it possible that we can use movies and art to sell Africa to the African, as Marcus Garvey said? But how would we get funding to push forward those ideas?
The issue of funding is secondary. I want to start off with just a basic thing here. Say right now we have about 61 people that are watching us on this program. If 61 people right now, who all of them, by the way, have cell phones in their hands as I am talking, can by the sunset of today find a beautiful picture about Africa and start selling and showing that beautiful part of Africa. Can you imagine by sunset how many beautiful pictures we will have? And if the whole continent of 1.4 billion people can decide to show the beauty of their own continent, we will have a different narrative. The biggest and the worst enemies of Africa are fellow Africans who speak bad about their own continent. And they are the worst marketing managers of their own content. The American dream, there's nothing American about the American dream. America has slums, both in California, it has slums in New York City and in Brooklyn. It has slums in South Carolina. Slums, literally slums where people are living under bridges. But will you ever see that?
Yeah, you never. They will never show you that because they're selling the American dream.
But as you rightfully put it, immediately someone wants to tell an African story, they think Soweto.
Yeah.
They don't think Hartebie Sport.
Yeah.
So our idea of our own continent is to always tell the story from poverty to wealth, which is one narrative. But we cannot also show how wealth and how much the amount of wealth we have, how it is impacting on our poverty. And immediately you begin to switch that telescope around. The picture changes. So the storyline must not always be, I was born poor, I was struggling, I was this, then I met this, then I met this, then boom, by the time the movie ends, I became wealthy and I became, yes, it's a good storyline because it shows hope. But the other side of the story is true also. Where there are children right now who are born in Senton, who are born in multi-million-dollar houses, and they start doing drugs and etc., and they end up on the streets doing nyaope, and they end up in the ditch. Now, which one is more educative? The one which shows you going up, or the one that shows a person coming down? Which one appeals?
Yeah, I think the one that shows a person going down, because now it's from my side. I think I feel that's a better story to write.
It's educational. The one is talking aspiration, the other one is addressing reality. So both storylines, without undermining the other, we cannot constantly be sharing one storyline of how Africa is coming out of poverty into a space of wealth. We also need to show how people who are born in houses full of clothes and food and drink are destroying themselves in these houses, and the quality of their lives is deteriorating to the pain of their fathers, to the pain of their parents, to the destruction of their own communities, some of them even by now behind bars. simply because they were not able to maximize and utilize the wealth and the privilege that they were born surrounding them, if that makes sense to you.
Yeah, that makes sense. Too much sense. So this one is saying people only understand that history book. People only understand what history books have taught us, have taught them, and Soweto not artists. True, we have power to build and break our own country. What is the best form of education for the youth right now? Because clearly we are distracted.
The best form of education is that which teaches the African about themselves. It's unfortunate that we go to school to memorize quotations of Tudor Bismarck, to memorize quotations, and our education is based on memorizing, on remembering. It's not based on knowledge. The best knowledge is that which teaches you about yourself.
Yeah. So
you learning about yourself.
So this one is saying, why can't we make movies about real things happening in our communities, interpretation of our everyday lives? Everyone can relate to this.
Yes, we are waiting for that person who wrote that comment to come and bring that story. We are not going to be. We don't have the gift of prophecy to go into his head or in her head and get that content. They must come forward with their storylines.
Yeah. Oh, so this one is saying they always show you what they want you to see, and depending on how much they fear you. I don't know which one what does this mean? But then
the one who has money controls the narrative.
Yeah. Then this one is saying, guys, remember to find your truth by Joshua Maponga. Get your truth. Sorry. Guys, remember to find Guys, remember to find your truth by Joshua Maponga. Okay. Yeah, you can tell us about that one as well.
It's a book, the book that I've published. Find the truth. So find your truth. So again, it's another storyline which you can make into a movie.
Yeah.
How a man born Seventh-day Adventist grows, and when he's growing, he becomes a pastor, becomes a bishop, and now he's beginning to explore into the indigenous and how the community is treating me, and as I am moving to looking for my truth. And at the end of that book, I'm challenging everyone to say, you also need to find your own truth. So it's a journey of a spiritual person looking for their own reason away from colonial Christianity and stuff like that. So it's a book that I've published, which is coming up shortly.
Okay, nice. So where can one get your book?
I will share the details with you, then you can publish them on your sites there. But yes.
Okay, thank you. So
blessing.
That one is interesting. The book. I wish to read it soon. Then, if possible, we can also turn it into another African film that's so inspiring as well. So this one is saying, how do we genuinely foster the spirit of Ubuntu as Africans in our movies?
What is lacking in many of our storylines is honesty. You see, when you are writing a black story with white eyes, then you always undermine your own culture. You will always abuse your own people and not represent them in the true light. So maybe what we need firstly is this word called honesty. You cannot say a British person went to a table for dinner or for lunch and you don't put fork and knife on the table to represent, and crockery and etc. to show that this is a British meal. So when you are beginning to say an African went for a meal, then how do you adulterate the African meal without giving me a dish of water to wash my hands, showing me the hierarchy of it, Pap this side, Muribo Nedovi this side, and etc., so that you represent the culture correctly. But again, when a young person has been intoxicated with colonial education, it is difficult for them to interpret African culture and represent it correctly.
But I thank you so much, guys, for watching our live. We shall meet again next time, same time, around 10 a.m. next week. Next week, Thursday, 10 a.m. But then for those who are looking for the book, Find Your Truth by Joshua Maponga. I'll send the details on my Instagram as well. Thank you so much for watching.